Do you want to maximize your success with NCUA? Join Mark Treichel as he shares with you the insider's view on passing your exam with flying colors. The With Flying Colors podcast is sponsored by Credit Union Exam Solutions by Mark Treichel. If you would like to work directly with the Credit Union Exam Solutions team and receive support to optimize your results with NCUA so you save time and money, visit us at marktreichel.com to find out more.
Hey everyone, this is Mark Treichel with another episode of With Flying Colors. I was going to say January. It feels like it's still be January, but it's June 15th. And this is going to be a podcast on an action NCUA took yesterday, which was a conservatorship action, which doesn't happen probably on average more than 1, 2, or 3, 4 times a year, depending on the year. When things get more challenging economically, they tend to increase. And I want to talk a little bit about the conservatorship action that NCUA published on its website yesterday. A press release yesterday, NCUA said First Choice Credit Union conserved. Accounts remain protected by Share Insurance Fund. Member service uninterrupted. The NCUA today placed First Choice Credit Union in Atlanta, Georgia into conservatorship. This action was taken in consultation with the Georgia Department of Banking and Finance. Member deposits at First Choice Credit Union remain protected by the NCUSIF, administered by the NCUA. The insurance fund insures individual accounts at First Choice up to $250,000, and a member's interest in all joint accounts combined is insured up to $250,000. It goes into more details on the insurance. It indicates member service will continue uninterrupted. Member services will continue uninterrupted at both of the credit union's branches in Atlanta. Members can continue to conduct normal financial transactions, deposit and access funds, make loan payments, and use shares. The offices are open Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 4. If you have questions, you can call the credit union. It shows links to the frequently asked questions page on their website. It shows links to share insurance coverage on NCUA's website and at mycreditunion.gov. First Choice Credit Union is a federally insured, state-chartered credit union with 6,709 members and assets of approximately $38.6 million, according to the credit union's most recent call report. First Choice Credit Union serves employees of Grady Hospital, Morehouse School of Medicine faculty, Emory University School of Medicine faculty, Southside Healthcare, Atlanta Life Insurance Company, South Fulton Community Development Corporation, credit union staff, and family members. All right, so $38 million. They were conserved on a Friday. Back in the day, I would only do conservatorships on Friday. Why is that? You want to take the credit union over at the end of the day so that you could count cash and work over the weekend, see what might come out of the woodwork, because stuff always comes out of the woodwork if you're doing a conservatorship. If you had 5 reasons to conserve it, after you conserved it, you find out there were 10, 15, or 20. If there was just one reason, you find out there were 5, 10, 15, or 20. It's a complicated process. NCUA does very well. It's a high octane type weekend where you bring in a team of NCUA's best and brightest, and they scrub the books so they can get an understanding of what the true risk is to the insurance fund is. If you look at their most recent FPR, which the press release referred to, they were at $38.6 million. They had $26 million in loan. They had total shares of 35 million, and they lost $150,000 in the first quarter of 2024. I'm sure if we go over to the income and expense, we're going to see that probably had something to do with provision for loan loss. Let's see, provision for loan loss. They had $137,000 in provision for loan loss in March and $400,000 the previous year. They've lost $150,000. So their expenses are high. And you wonder, why does a credit union get conserved? Their key ratios show that they had 8.5% net worth. If they had 8.5% net worth and it was real, and NCUA wasn't concerned about the 8.5%, they would not have been conserved. It's difficult to conserve a credit union with a lot of capital, which means there are either accounting issues that are going to erode that, or there are loan issues. Delinquent loans are at 10%, which is in the 99th percentile, meaning they have higher delinquency than 99% of the credit unions in their peer group. Their rolling 12-month charge-off is 2%. The peer average is 40 basis points, and they're in the 96th percentile, meaning 96% of credit unions in their peer group have less charge-offs. They are losing money in 2024. So there's a question as to that net worth. Now, could there be other issues? If that net worth has to be less than that, in my opinion, if they're going to conserve, or they think it might be less than that, meaning that there are accounting issues or there's a concern in some way, shape, or form about fraud. A lot of small credit unions that are conserved end up having done so because of fraud. I'm not saying that I know that. I'm not saying that anybody has told me that. I'm not saying it's necessarily true here. However, when small credit unions with 8% net worth get conserved, usually that net worth evaporates either by loan losses, accounting losses, fraud write-offs that happen shortly after conservatorship. Now, I'll be recording a podcast later this week for distribution in the future with Todd Miller and Steve Farr of my team. We're going to talk about LUAs, cease and desist orders, and conservatorships. It is likely that NCUA felt in order to minimize loss to the insurance fund and to protect the interests of the credit union, that they felt that there was no other choice but to conserve this credit union. By the way, NCUA there's a redacted version of NCUA's enforcement manual, by the way, which was written by Steve Farr of my team, which is an old document. It's their instruction 4820. If you go to that document, that public document, it says the Federal Credit Union Act empowers the NCUA board to appoint itself or another, such as a state official, as conservator of any federally insured credit union when grounds established in the act are met. This includes circumstances where the board determines that such action is necessary to conserve the assets of any insured credit union or to protect the NCUSIF or the interests of the members of such insured credit union. Any insured credit unions, by a resolution of its board of directors, consents to such an action by the board. The Attorney General of the United States notifies the board in writing that an insured credit union has been found guilty of a criminal offense. There is a willful violation of a cease and desist order, which has become final. There is concealment of books, papers, records, or assets of the credit union, or refusal to submit books, papers, records, or affairs of the credit union for inspection to any examiner or to any lawful agent of the board. And board in this is with a capital B, meaning it's the NCUA board. The credit union is significantly undercapitalized as defined under the Federal Credit Union Act. By the way, they always skip doing it under PCA because it's simpler to do it under their other authorities. A conservatorship does not require an administrative hearing. However, the credit union may challenge the action in U.S. District Court within 10 calendar days of the NCUA placing it into conservatorship. Now, by the way, if they do contest it, they have to do it with their own funds. They are no longer officials of the credit union. They cannot hire an attorney and expect them to be paid by the credit union because they no longer represent the credit union. NCUA serves as the insurer, and NCUA serves as the board of directors of the credit union under conservatorship until such time that they decide to return it to the field of membership, which they would pick a board. They'd have an advisory board to get them off the ground and running. And then ultimately the NCUA board would have to vote to return it to the members, or NCUA decides it's in the best interest to merge it or have a purchase and assumption liquidation into another credit union, or NCUA decides that the credit union simply just needs to be liquidated. All right. So one other thing that caught my eye is I looked at the notice of the profile. Let's see, the profile of the credit union, and it's a low income designated credit union. It's a minority depository institution, designates itself as such, had grants from the National Federation of Community Development Credit Unions in 2014, the Department of Health and Human Services in 2018, from the National Federation of Community Development Credit Unions in 2020. And those three combined totaled $61,000. But the big ticking item here is a community development financial institution grant of $1.8 million in August of 2021. Lots of interesting data here, just looking at their profile, looking at their financial statement, which shows that they're healthy, but clearly they're not if NCUA decided to pursue a conservatorship. Also, note that the press release talked about that they consult. What were the words they used? I remember these words. Well, the action was taken in consultation with the Georgia Department of Banking and Finance. That means either Georgia Department of Banking agreed with it, or Georgia became aware of something and asked NCUA to do it. Or if they didn't agree with it, NCUA board would have to have a vote and give them a few days advance notice before NCUA took that action. So that preserves a little bit of the state's rights for a state chartered credit union. But it's clear that both the banking department and NCUA felt this action was necessary. It'll be interesting to see how this plays out. Does the credit union survive? Does it not survive? Are there any prohibitions related to it? And what actually, now you won't find that out until NCUA does a postmortem, if they do a postmortem publicly on this matter. But because there was a grant from the CDFI, other government agencies may be interested in seeing how this plays out. All right, interesting times with this conservatorships. That's all I've got for you on this short one single credit union topic. First choice credit union conserved by NCUA, what that means for the members, what it means for credit unions in general. By the way, NCUA, I've had a lot of questions recently about what are NCUA's authorities to remove officials. When NCUA does remove officials, it's just like they did here. They conserve it, they take the whole place over. They do have the legal authority to do it under other portions of the Federal Credit Union Act, which have certain requirements where if they wanted to remove a CEO, they could, but the requirements for that to meet that threshold, I'll cover that in another podcast. They could remove particular board members, but historically, NCUA goes straight to the finish line and conserves the credit union, gets rid of all the officials. Instead of using a rifle, they use a shotgun. And one of the reasons they do that are the threshold for actually conserving is easier to prove than the threshold for doing an individual. But I'll talk more about that coming up in other podcasts that we have outlined for later this year. I hope you have a wonderful Father's Day for those of you who are a father, for those of you who are going to visit your father. It's one of my favorite holidays, if not my most favorite holiday of the year. And I got a chance to see my daughter and granddaughter today, and tomorrow we'll get a chance to see our other daughter and our other granddaughter. So it's a great weekend for family. I hope you spend time with yours, and stay tuned on more on administrative actions, more on conservatorships, and more on this particular conservatorship down the road. I appreciate you listening. Mark Treichel signing off with Flying Colors.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of With Flying Colors. Subscribe on your favorite podcast app to hear future episodes where subject matter experts of all varieties will provide tips on how to achieve success with NCUA. If you would like to learn more about how we assist credit unions, check out our services at marktreichel.com.